Hi guys, how are we doing today?
Hello, hello.
I don't know
I'm
why I
doing
said
swell.
hi. Yeah, it's you, Cole. Hi gang. Happy birthday, Mickey Mouse. Yay.
Today's the
Um
day.
Today, well, it's kind of like today and yesterday are the high holy days of Disneyum. Yesterday was Life Day, today is Mickey Mouse. So welcome to Theme Park History 101. I am your host, Jeremiah, and over there,
I'm Cole. I prefer to go by
man,
sidekick.
you
I
are
think that's
my
what I've chosen. Sidekick. I like that. I think that's the way to do it.
we'll figure that out. Anyway, because today is Mickey Mouse's birthday, we're going to talk about a special project that many people don't really know much about, the Mickey Mouse Park. Before we get into that, though, let's go through the normal business. Welcome. If you like this stream, if you don't like this stream, please like, subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter. Are we doing smoke signals yet?
Well, I've been doing smoke signals for a few weeks now, but that's just me.
Nobody's responding.
Yeah, no one's responding.
Uh, so anyway, Cole and I are both Disney nerds. Well, we're theme park nerds as a whole, but this seems to be a little Disney-centric theme park history 101 this week, talking about the park that really started it all. Now, Cole, what did you know about the Mickey Mouse Park before I said yesterday, hey, we're going to talk about the Mickey Mouse Park?
I knew kind of the general specifics of it. Like I knew that it was supposed to exist or approximately where it was. Jeremiah sent me a little article, so I had known a good amount of stuff that was in that article, but never like really researched it. But I was pretty familiar with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of Disney fans are used to seeing at least this portion of the history of the Mickey Mouse Park, this giant map. Let me get rid of
Mm-hmm.
that banner so we can see that. A lot of these images are thanks to d23.com. Please sign up, join if you aren't following them today. This week has actually been a great week because this was supposed to be Destination D week, but they're doing a virtual. So they're doing 2 different panels each day. 2 of the panels are only for gold or gold family members. And if you're not a gold or gold family member, it's a good time to sign up because not only do you get the great welcome package that has a lot of fun stuff, you also get a new pin set, the Fantastic Worlds, that has some great pins in there that wasn't included when I re-upped. I've been a member since the beginning. But anyway, okay, enough plugging of D23, although you should join D23. So the Mickey Mouse Park. We all know that Walt loved Disney, or Walt loved Disney. Yes, especially
What?
Lillian. Uh, Walt loved anything with his daughters. He loved going to the
Mm-hmm.
Griffith Park carousel, but he got tired of watching them enjoy the day. He wanted someplace where he could have fun with his family and see everything. I'm not going to recap the whole great speech, which I love, but
Lovely
at the same
tale. Lovely tale.
yes. So this dates back, or at least this concept dates back to originally, from what I've seen, when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs premiered, he talked a little bit about a theme park idea because he created
Mm-hmm.
houses. Created the Seven Dwarfs cottage as for a display for the opening of the film. And he talked at that point about a theme park in the future, which is a great idea, but that's quite a few years before.
That's a lot of
Then,
money.
yeah, and you think about when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs opened, they had barely, he put everything he owned in
Mm-hmm.
pawn to try to pay for it. So his theme park wasn't that realistic at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But we scoot forward a few years, and the first mention of the Mickey Mouse theme park was actually a memo dated August 31st, 1948, to the Disney studio production designer, Dick Kelsey. And it was the concept of the Mickey Mouse Park. At that point, Walt had ideas. He always loved the carousel idea, and of course, we all know the number one thing that Walt wanted in any of his parks, which was Cole.
Kids, clean. Mickey Mouse, 3, 4. I don't know.
A
I'm failing.
train.
A train, of course, a train. I feel like kids was the right answer too, though. He wanted it to be kid friendly and clean. That's always what I hear about.
He wanted his family, yeah, everybody there. Uh, but yes, thank you, Heather. Yes, I know Walt loved Disney. Uh, and also, by the way, if you are watching and you do want to comment, we are doing this all live. This isn't something you're just turning on YouTube and can rewind. So please make comments, questions. If you have any requests for us to do anything, possibly in the future, we could look at that. But this is all about the Mickey Mouse Park today. So the concept was thrown out there in 1948. Walt then was traveling the world. He went to Tivoli Gardens in Europe, which is kind of where I feel every story about Disneyland ever comes from. It was him and Lillian went, and he loved it, and it was so beautiful and clean, and it wasn't like the carnivals, and it had the popcorn lights, which for some reason popcorn lights seem to pop up in every story about Tivoli Gardens. And I've seen pictures, and it's understandable. But it was one of those interesting things. Those of you who have never seen anything about Tivoli Gardens, it was immaculate. It was a beautiful park for everybody to go enjoy. Walt loved visiting there. I believe that they have listed at least 2 major trips out there. But
he went to Europe pretty often, so
yeah, I mean, that's after his heck of a breakdown, as they say. Yeah. He hopped on a cruise ship and then headed over there. But while he was in Europe on a different trip, he actually ran into somebody that helped greatly, not only with the Mickey Mouse Park, but I want to say with the success of Disney as a whole, and definitely some of, well, my favorite Disney film, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And we were actually just talking about this person last week, Harper Goff, because not only did he help Disney, but he helped create the Glamour tram for Universal Studios. But when Walt was in Europe, he was in a train shop, and he saw, and let me pull up the exact, this is from D23, the Legends information about Harper Goff. Artist Harper Goff first met Walt Disney in 1951 at a train shop in London, where they were both interested in purchasing the same model train set. Harper later recalled that meeting. He turned to me and said, "I'm Walt Disney. Are you the man that wanted to buy this engine?" Well, I almost fell over. He asked me what I do for a living, and I told him that I was an artist. He said, "When you get back to America, come and talk to me." So, that's pretty amazing that you just run into Walt Disney in a train shop, and then he turns around and goes, "Hey, you want a job? Sure, come on over."
It's also funny that he says you want to go back to America when they filmed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in Europe.
Yeah.
And then he hires him for a job.
This was all before any of that. This was actually like how it all started.
Yeah.
But Harper, and as the story goes, Walt actually kind of grabbed the model train from underneath Harper, as Harper was kind of dumbfounded, I guess, from the job opportunity. Yeah. So that's one of those, like, right place, right time. And then you look at what Harper Goff did in the future and how it turned everything into Disneyland. But we're getting ahead of ourselves as normal. So here we have the concept of the Mickey Mouse Park. What we're going to do is kind of go through, for those of you who have never been to Burbank, Colt, since you live down the road, do you want to describe what this area is right now?
Yeah, I was going to say, before we start, we should probably say where to. So if you scroll up too, you can see that right across the street from where this park is was the Disney studio. So that's still where the studio is today. And we're at Riverside, Buena Vista, all those streets are all the same. And basically across the way, just right across the street, they wanted to put the Mickey Mouse Park. It was kind of close to the Griffith Park area, and it's just like a nice little area. There's a lot of homes in that area now, and it was kind of like a quaint area. So it would have been interesting to see a theme park there, even if it's a smaller one. Definitely Burbank would look a lot different today because of how that area has kind of grown over the years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, looking at this map, Disney Studios is here, and that's still in the same spot, Riverside Drive, Buena Vista. Pretty much from the parking area through all of this is where the 101 freeway is currently.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, this area is a little more where like the animation building is in the ABC building.
Yeah.
That and the 101 kind of combined. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I was back home just a few months ago, I got off right here and, just drove right down Buena Vista Street. But let's talk about the park itself.
Yeah.
So here we have the entrance, and we'll kind of follow along.
Mm-hmm.
So Guestwood Park across the street, which is now, that is more of the on-ramp onto the 101 and the underpass that heads over to Griffith Park.
Yeah, the on-ramp and kind of where the high school is, Providence High School. Kind of, not really. There's not really much there. It's kind of just a park, really.
Yeah.
Like it's the on-ramp and a park.
Yeah, so you would enter, and this area was the Carnival area, of course, looking the carousel, which Walt would have had definitely set aside right away. Carnival Area was more of the games, but not the carny feel. Walt hated that. That was one of the things, even in some of the interviews that goes on to talk about why this didn't follow through, was Burbank was afraid that it would turn into a dirty carnival area. But thankfully, Walt never wanted that. The fairgrounds, that would have been, where he could do shows, have all the, Mickey Mouse Club could have performed there. Of course, this was before even that.
Yeah.
So let's head into Newtown first. Newtown was very much going to be the Main Street USA of the area.
Which is interesting to see it deeper into the park, because you think, in your head, you think Main Street, oh, that's right when I enter into Disneyland or Magic Kingdom, but no, you kind of gotta work a little bit to get there in this one.
And this would have been in the center of Newtown, which kind of would have been the feel of, Walt's hometown. I don't want to say Marceline or anything, but it would have been more of that with the Main Street USA, probably a little bit closer to the late turn of the 20th century, as opposed to Main Street USA that was more of the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that this statue was definitely an older statue. And it would have been a nice area.
How funny it is. They put a bird on top of its head. That is so funny.
Harper, and these are all Harper Goff in 1951, his concept art. So it's interesting to see, as opposed to Herb Ryman, who we see his artwork for everything for Disneyland, where it was grandiose and there were tons of people. This is more just centralized, and each of his pieces of artwork were very one building or just one focus and something in the background.
Yeah.
This reminds me of some of the older Disney live action films where they would go into town, Pollyanna, those type of things, where you would see the town square and some activity. So it was always a really nice thing to see. Yeah. One of the other things about Newtown that I knew of this concept before I started searching, but I didn't know that it was supposed to go into the Mickey Mouse Park. And that was, of course, the haunted house.
Ooh. Wow, that really does look like what the haunted, like you can see the parallels that ended up going into Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, and this was, I'd always seen this concept art, and I never thought, oh, well, this was going to go into across the street from the Disney studios. No, I always thought this was going to be off Main Street or something.
Hmm.
But no, this is purely Newtown. That was the church that's actually in the background of that picture that we were just looking at.
Hmm.
And then there's the graveyard, and then you go up the hill, and there's that old haunted house on the hill. So if not for the Mickey Mouse park, we may not have had the Haunted Mansion. There you go,
It
Doobie.
really
That one
kind
was
of
for you.
looks like Mystic Manor too.
Hmm.
I kind of get more Mystic Manor vibes, I would say, than Haunted Mansion even.
Yeah, and it's just the artwork. It was so amazing. And I
Hmm.
always love looking at different artists that had input on Disneyland. And of course, the Mickey Mouse Park was
Hmm.
definitely the early precursor to that park.
Yeah.
But one of the things about the new town that they really wanted, and Walt in one of the interviews talked about how this would be a place where mothers and grandmothers could watch their kids play, which I find kind of funny that that was said, even though Walt always hated sitting on the bench and just watching his girls ride on the carousel.
I know, yeah, it doesn't really add up.
But hey, it's Walt. We've heard lots of contradictions on some of his things over the years.
That is true. That is true. Maybe he wanted to provide the opportunity to do that, not in Griffith Park.
Yeah. So I mean, we're up here at the new town. That would have been the center. I'm guessing that the church would have been somewhere over in this area.
Hmm.
And of course, one of the things that we can't forget about Newtown, of course, the railroad depot.
Hmm.
And the railroad was designed, it looks like, to go all the way around the park, the little island. And, we know that Walt had a love of railroads, and that's kind of where everything started in his backyard and then expanded. The story is that we always hear is how the railroad outgrew his backyard, so he started building his own parks for it.
No, what's
So,
interesting too is it
oh,
almost. I think this is just a wall, or is it another railroad track? Like it almost looks like there's two railroad tracks.
I think they
I
had
can't quite tell what that is.
some of it is Stagecoach Trails because they
Mm.
actually were going to have a stagecoach that would take guests. That was their people mover of the day.
Okay, I like that. That makes
Yeah.
sense, though. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So as we head out of Newtown, we head into Old Town. They really thank thank goodness we have Star Wars Galaxy's Edge now as opposed to Star Wars Town. Um, Old Town was going to be, more of the Frontierland feel, the Old
Hmm.
West. They also did have three attractions. One was a combination of two, and then one was this massive canal boat ride. And
Hmm.
again, so Harper's artwork does pop up with this, and I was again blown away at, wait, this is supposed to be in this park? So the first one here, again, thanks D23, was the old mill and the old mill pond.
Mm.
So the old mill, as you can kind of see, let's see if I can zoom in without getting too much, was going to be a merry-go-round. No,
No, Ferris wheel. Ferris wheel.
Ferris
That's
wheel.
what it is.
Wow.
Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel, which again, this concept was later used in Disneyland Paris for the old
Hmm.
mill Ferris wheel that didn't last too long. But it's amazing to see how something that was created in 1951, Tony Baxter brought back
Yeah.
in the 90s to do this.
Hmm.
And then the old mill pond, which was kids riding around in giant ducks.
Which kind of almost became like the swan boats at Magic Kingdom. Look at this. Everything that they had is getting used, which is pretty amazing.
If not for these concepts, we wouldn't have the parks as we know them today.
Seriously. Or well,
I,
the parks as we knew them years ago.
yes.
Because most of these concepts have been retired by now.
Yeah, that's the other thing. These concepts have come and gone quite a bit. but they always
Yeah.
seem to stick around in some form. And then the other attraction that was going to be in the area was the Gravity Canal Boat Ride, which
Hmm.
I enjoy the name Gravity Canal Boat Ride. And this was, you would actually end up going into Monstro's mouth.
That seems familiar.
Yeah, canal boat rides and gravity working together. This was, I'm sure, supposed to be just the pump share attraction where the boat goes around, not motorboats or that type of thing.
Hmm.
But looking back at the actual map of the canal boats, it was a massive attraction.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that is hard to pick out, but it's there. Okay, so here's the gravity flow canal boats. So I guess you would load here and then you'd
Hmm.
float around. And I'm guessing it was going to be very much like the canal boats where they just planted weeds and put exotic names of the weeds up there. But
Yeah.
if you look down here in this corner, there's this line that is very, very light. And if we take it over, there was going to be a castle. So,
Castle.
yeah, we don't see it there, but 1951,
Yeah.
Walt suggested to Herb a castle on his canal. I'm sorry, on the gravity flow canal boat rides, and it got put something small right there. And if we're thinking about it then, who knows what castle it would have been? We know it would have been
Hmm.
wouldn't have been Sleeping Beauties, but
I
what it would
mean,
have been.
maybe it would. Like, here's the thing: Sleeping Beauty also hadn't come out when Disneyland opened, so
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the
probably
early
Cinderella.
times where Walt was talking, and he called it just about every castle he could think of at one point or another. But hey, promotion always worked.
It was probably going to be Cinderella, to be honest. Probably what it
Yeah.
would have been.
So we're still out in Old Town, but we start to head to the outskirts where
Wait,
we
can I
have
add
this.
one more thing
Sure.
about the canal boats? So actually, I had read that they were supposed to center around like a Lilliputian land from Gulliver's Travels, which then was also proposed to come to Disneyland, and it did not work out in either case.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of that concept art, but
Hmm.
the only things that I was tracking down that's actually listed as Harper Goff 51 was the stuff that I pop up.
Hmm.
And again, a lot of these little bits and pieces of the history of this, I went through 3 different websites. I was reading Jim Corcus stuff. I was reading Jim Hill stuff. I was looking on Yesterdayland, everything to get bits and pieces. And there is no
Hmm.
set story of it.
No, yeah.
So we're just kind of putting everything together. And
Hmm.
I will be the first person to admit that I'm not one of the historians. And I do what's the saying? I stand on the shoulders of the giants, and
Yeah.
the gems are definitely up there with the history. Just like Doobie and
Hmm.
Rebecca, you go and look at some of the old stuff on Laughing Place, and there's stories from Jim Hill that
Yeah.
the only way you could find is Jim Hill at some point interviewed somebody or
Hmm.
went back even further and found some random memo.
Yeah.
So we really do have a lot of things that, no matter how much you and I talk about it, the scary thing is at some point we could be quoted as doing this,
Yeah.
which that's even extra scary. So heading out of the old town into kind of the rural area of the old town, we have the stagecoach route, which is what kind of goes around the
Hmm.
entire park. Granny's Farm, which this one is kind of funny because it was going to be a petting zoo, but it was based off of the hit Disney film So Dear to My Heart that was made in
Mm,
1948. I
what
mean,
a hit.
yeah, you can quote that film, right, Cole? Like that's
Oh, yeah,
off the
yeah.
back
I've
of.
totally seen it at least once in my life.
So here's a trivia question for you and for anybody on watching that wants to jump in. Can anybody tell me what the name of the black sheep in So Dear to My Heart is?
Granny. That's my best guess.
Nope, it's Jeremiah.
Of course. So that means So Dear to My Heart must be your favorite film.
I have actually never seen the film, and that's one of the things I need to fix. But it is funny that was, I want to say, when pen trading started coming out in the Millennia Celebration, they had the Disney Store film pins that I own way too many of, and I want to say that's where I learned that trivia.
That makes sense.
But yeah, Granny's Farm, it was a petting zoo, had livestock. Of course, there's always the creek that kind of runs through from the corner over the covered bridge, which I'm sure would have been a great homage to the Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
So you see the creek run through Granny's Farm and into the gravity flow canal boat.
Well, how are you going to get that gravity?
Exactly.
I mean, come on, you need the creek.
But here's one that we don't have a line. I mean, I think this could be the line over here, the dwarf's house. And I'm guessing this probably would have fallen somewhere here in the Old Town, which is kind of more of the Fantasyland area. But it's funny that the dwarf's house, which is really what started all of this back when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs started, found its way here. And then we have the Stagecoach, which again runs all around the park. The Indian Village. Where did that concept finally end up, Cole?
Oh, maybe in Disneyland as well. Like basic Stagecoach, Indian Village, they just copied it for Frontierland.
Yeah. You can't have a park without an Indian Village. Well,
of course,
nowadays, but
no, technically, I would say that there is still an Indian Village. You just can't go on it as a guest, but there's definitely a lot of Native American representation when you're like riding the riverboat or on the train. Like, I would count that as almost a village.
Thank you for jumping over to the term Native American, because after the third time of saying Indian Village, I'm like, okay, I'm done with that one.
Yep.
So we kind of move out of Old Town into this island area that we see a boathouse, a Mississippi steamboat, the Bird Island with Lagoon and Wild Bird Sanctuary, which, Wild Bird Sanctuary. Think that could come into play sometime later on in a different part of the world?
Maybe across the country. Who knows?
Yeah. And then we have the lighthouse, which would have been here. And this is the funny one. Skull Rock would have been right here. So this was 1951. Do you happen to recall what year Peter Pan came out?
1953. I have all of them memorized, all of the animated classics. I could go pretty much in order. It's pretty sad, actually.
And that's why I keep you around as my sidekick, because I was like, if you don't know this answer, I'm going to look pretty silly. So yeah, even in 1951, Walt was looking at a way to promote films in the future, and he had Skull Rock out there. So this is what we know as the original concept. But then we also have this random piece of art that isn't really given a date that I've been able to find, but I feel like this has been seen by more people recently than the larger map. And sorry, this isn't the best version, but it looks like it's a later version of the Mickey Mouse Park. That looks like that would have been the bumper boats or the duck boats and the steamboat, the train. And then we have Old Town on the island with the train going over it. That looks like it was Granny's farm. This could have been a smaller version when they decided that the 16 acres that they had needed to be condensed into something a little bit more manageable, because we have the Indian Village up in the corner, and it kind of takes the best of I want to say what Walt loved and condensed it into one
Mhm.
park. It kind of got rid of the Main Street feel, but then we see everything that is still there. Pretty much, this is Frontierland in
Yeah.
most parks.
And I mean, looking at it, you can obviously tell that since everything's on an island in the middle, this is basically Tokyo Disney Sea.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. It's all coming together. Everything is connected in this grand scheme of life.
just like Marvel.
Exactly. This was the MCU of theme parks.
Yes. I mean, really, you look at it, let's go back to the original map. I mean, okay, so this island is Tom Sawyer Island,
Mhm.
Main Street, Frontierland, parts of Fantasyland, more
Picnic
of
area.
Frontierland. Yeah, the picnic area.
That's still a major part. Not anymore, really, but
Well,
for a
it's there.
while,
It's still small.
I ate at that picnic area quite a lot as a child.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this, this definitely is what Walt saw. And then,
Hmm.
so this whole concept, Walt got approval for. Let me bring up my. So the Burbank Daily Review. You read that every day, right, Cole, that paper?
I don't know if it still exists, but we do get the Burbank Times, so we do get a Burbank newspaper at this house because we support local journalism.
Good job. So on March 27th, 1952, the Burbank Daily Review wrote this: Walt Disney Make Believe Land project planned here. Disneyland, a spectacular world of make believe made reality by the genius of famed cartoon producer Walt Disney, is being planned as a $1.5 million development on Disney property at Riverside and Buena Vista. He had just gotten approval from the city Parks and Recs department to build this.
Mm-hmm.
This is my favorite part. He won tentative approval from the city Parks and Recreation Department after hearing Walt's assurance that this was not a commercial venture and was not meant to turn a profit. Yeah, that so we kind of understand, and maybe that wasn't 100% why Roy was kind of crazy about this plan.
It shows they did not talk to Roy at all. They only
Yeah,
talked to Walt, who's like, "We don't need to make money. I'm not in this to make money." And Roy's like, but we can't do anything without money. So get it
yeah,
together, brother."
we kind of need the money part to make it all. The interesting thing about that article is that's the first time the term Disneyland is actually used.
Yeah.
There was the Disneylandias, the miniature
Mm-hmm.
touring thing that Walt had created, whereas looking into uh, displays, and that's also where the animation kind of ideas came up of seeing, you'd look in, you'd see something happen,
Yeah.
but that made one tour. And again, as with a lot of Walt projects early in the day, it kind of failed.
Yeah.
But 1952, March 27th, 1952, an article says Disneyland is coming. So we go from a Mickey Mouse park to the Disneyland park within just about, how many years was that? 1948 to 1952. So 4 years.
Yeah.
And then Walt had this plan, and that lot was 16 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that other map that could fit 16 acres, I'm sure. But looking at this one, that kind of outgrew 16 acres. Walt went
Yeah.
to the Burbank City Council asking to purchase 10 acres to the north and 10 acres to the south so he could build his entire plan. Um, Funny enough, Burbank didn't want a carnival atmosphere, didn't want what they thought, because nobody understood what a theme park was, the feel of having a giant fair, especially right next to what would become the Griffith Park main area, the
Mm-hmm.
freeway. So in September of 1952, just a few months after he got the approval, they denied the 20 more acres purchase.
I
So
think too, it's important when looking at this to remember that like Walt created the idea of a theme park. Amusement parks existed, but theme parks did not. Like, because when you think of a theme park, you think of it's clean, there's something for everyone, it's different than an amusement park. It's not like a Six Flags where you go and there's a bunch of roller coasters and it's not highly themed. Like, you think of Universal or Knott's Berry Farm or Disneyland that have these full scale, fully themed, super nice. You could take your whole family there without having to worry about anything. That just, it didn't exist. So it makes sense that Burbank would say, nah, we don't really want to have an amusement park, not knowing that Walt meant, nah, this is a theme park.
yeah, I mean, you look at it, for those of us who drive or drove by this area every day, there's still empty lots of land. I mean, if we
Mm-hmm.
kind of look at this, this is the Disney Studio lot. So this is still here. You figure that the pedestrian bridge would be somewhere right around here.
Yeah.
ABC lot or ABC building would be right in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then right over here would be the Disney Animation Building. And their house is back in this area, but a lot of this is still just undeveloped.
I think
So,
the bigger issue is that you would eventually run into the mountains. Like if you get to something the size of Disneyland, at a certain point you're getting right up into the mountain. And that's what I think would have been the big fatal flaw. It would have been really hard to expand because you have a bit of room that way, but then eventually you're gonna be out of space.
yeah, and you look at this, I mean, we think about how Disneyland has reshaped the river and done everything for Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
Galaxy's Edge, plus adding, if this was built as it is designed here, there would be very little expansion space. This thing would have
Yeah.
had to have been paved over 3 or 4 times to be rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just amazing to look at this concept turned into what we know as the Disney park model. I mean, you see the center of Newtown kind of has the town square feel or the hub and spoke feel, but
Mm-hmm.
none of this would have fit in
Yeah.
today's world if if this were the only Disney park that we knew, it would be able to hold 12 people.
Yeah. Especially in these times. They'd be like, what's 25% of capacity? Yeah, 12. We're good.
Yeah.
You're done.
Thank you for playing. Have a good day. Yeah, so as Cole had said, one of the thing that is in that space now, I have a picture.
The pressure is
I know.
rising. What could be there? I don't know. We haven't said it a couple times already, but maybe it'll appear again, and this time in picture form, as I describe the journey to here. There it is.
So yeah, I mean, this building, it's funny. I know somebody who worked in this building when it was built. He worked off property when they were in the warehouses, and then they built this beautiful building. And now you look at it, the Roy E. Disney Animation Building doesn't really house much animation anymore, according to some of the last documentaries that have come out. They've again moved them out. This is more office space for executives, that type of stuff. But it's a beautiful building.
I knew when I worked there a few years ago, there was a lot of people still doing animation there, though. Mm-hmm. Definitely was still heavily used for that.
Yeah, I had a chance to visit back when they were working on Princess and the Frog, and walking down the halls and actually seeing the artwork. And, you know, the Roy O had his office in the Sorcerer Hat, which is now kind of just the rotunda. When I visited a few years ago for one of the media events, we kind of got a chance to walk around, and you see where there were hallways where their animators are much more now just offices for things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was one of the things about the Roy E. Disney building. When it was built, they consulted animators and how to build it so it was more open, and the hallways were very nice and wide open, so you could actually converse with other people. And this is
Mm-hmm.
going off of me who walked it once. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking about that now. But one of the last points that I want to call out is, so we have September of 1952. Burbank said, nope, you can't have that. The reports that came out of that were Harper and Walt were both there. And when they denied it, they didn't do anything other than gather up their paperwork and just turn around and walk out. They didn't argue. They didn't try for anything. They just left. But then you fast forward to just about a year later, September 23rd, 1953, Walt calls Herb Ryman into his office, says, hey, I have this great concept for a theme park. Herb goes, great, I'd love to see it. And Walt goes, hey, you're going to draw it. And then they had the Lost Weekend, which led into the concept for Disneyland, or the concept art for Disneyland that sold it to the bankers. That is a story that we've heard many times, and we'll probably, if we make it to July 17th time, we'll talk more about the creation of Disneyland.
I hope we make it to that. Don't be so morbid.
I mean, doing the show, not you and I as being alive. That turned dark really fast. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how a little concept like that, now we have parks around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Concept has expanded to other theme parks. We have parks in Dubai, parks all around the world that went off the concept of Disneyland, that was based off the concept of the Mickey Mouse park. So yes, if not for the Mickey Mouse park, we would not have the theme park as we know it today.
Yes, indeed. I think one other interesting thing, this is a teaser for something we could potentially do in the future, is this was not the first time or not the last time that the Disney company tried to build themed entertainment in Burbank. Because of the long-lost Disney MGM Studios project in Burbank. But that's for another day. But I wanted to hint it in there because, they didn't give up. They thought, maybe we'll try again.
Yes, Shelley. If it weren't for, none of this would happen. So, Cole, is there anything else that you want to add to this?
Not to this. I did want to give one quick shout out to Jen Savati, who actually heard our first episode and sent me a map of 2002 California Adventure that I put into the interactive map project. So, if you ever find any other maps of years that don't seem to have maps, let me know, because that was a big help.
Yeah, please. I mean, you can contact us. The easiest way to contact us, I'm Jeremiah at Laughing Place. Are you Cole at Laughing Place?
I'm Cole at Laughing Place, yep.
Please drop us an email if you have any suggestions, if you have any criticisms, if you have any ideas. If you just want to send Cole a map that he's missing from his giant map project,
it's very helpful.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
But before we go, please, please, please like, subscribe to us, ring our bell on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, share with your friends if they're Disney nerds, if they're theme park nerds, or if they just never get tired of hearing us babble about things that we will never get a chance to see more of than a few pictures, sadly. Also, before we go, next week, since it is the day before Thanksgiving, we are not going to be doing a show. We will be back in December. For how many shows, we're still looking at that. But we do, hopefully in December, we'll have a couple of authors of some books that you'll want to pick up for your holiday shopping. So we'll tease that. And other than that, I think that just about does it.
Yep, I think that's it.
But we do have to say, what's up, Nathan?
What's up?
Everybody, thank you very much for joining Cole and I on our trip through history back to the Mickey Mouse Park. We hope you all celebrated Life Day safely yesterday, and you're all celebrating the birthday of Mickey and Minnie today by going on Shop Disney, buying any of the Minnie products that are on there and Mickey products. And again, we'd like to thank D23 for these amazing photos and history that we can go off of.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys very much. We'll see you in December. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yep. Bye.